Welcome to my show, simply entitled Women Influencers, where you will find inspirational stories of successful women in male-dominated industries. I am Veronica Malowas, CCIM, founder and CEO of the Capstack Group of companies, providing commercial real estate development, brokerage, and property management services in the greater Orlando area. My next guest is Arleen Garza, co-founder of REEP Equity out of San Antonio, Texas, a multifamily investment firm with over $650 million in assets under management. Her personal story is simply amazing. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe below. I welcome your comments and please share with someone who can benefit from this podcast. Hello, Arleen, all the way from Texas. How are you today?
I'm doing great and so excited to be on with you today. I love podcasts, especially those that are inspiring, and I'm sure this one's going to be. So thank you.
Oh, and I'm quite sure that our episode today is going to be extremely inspiring because I've heard your story. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just jump right in. Tell us about how you grew up in your environment and how you got to where you are today, Arleen.
Fantastic. So I grew up in a family of 10 kids, so 7 boys, 3 girls, in a small town in West Texas, in what we call oil country. And so my father was in oil field construction and my mom was a homemaker. And that was a great environment to grow up with. I call it my first management job because 6 of my siblings are younger than me. So it was a great way to learn the interaction between different personalities. So great growing up, watched my parents work very, very hard to give us everything we needed. We didn't ask for a lot, but we had everything we needed, including love. And so to me, that was a great place to grow up, the kind of town where you don't lock your doors. And so it was very community friendly, awesome place to grow up. And then from there, I went to college, a small junior college a few hours away, on scholarship. So in high school, we literally would line up in front of my parents when report cards came, all 10 of us, and show our grades. And what we knew, or what I knew early on, is that grades were going to be my ticket to college. My parents couldn't afford to send all of us, especially all of us at one time. So scholarships were a big part of my future. And so graduated 4th in my class and had a fully paid scholarship to a local junior college, and then had scholarships to go to the 4-year college in Lubbock. And I had started out in accounting and realized that it really wasn't what I liked to do. When I got to tax, I said, no, not my future. So I switched to finance. And what I loved about finance is that you could do real estate, you could do banking, you could do lending, you could do all types of things with that background. And one of the things I really wanted to learn was how to manage money. My mom was great at saving, but we were never really taught, as many of us, right, about investments or growing your money other than parking it in a savings account. So I wanted to learn how to do that. And fortunately for me, I was recruited by a large bank. And so I moved to Dallas to start in the banking industry. Went through credit training, learned how to be a lender, and then was able to graduate out of that program and manage a portfolio at a very young age. And that taught me a lot because then we were talking to people about other investments, right? And so that was a great big one. And then, after I retired from banking after 20 years, my husband and I started our current business in real estate.
And tell us a little bit about your current business. I think the audience would like to know.
Great. So we started with 24 units that we managed ourselves so that we could learn what it takes to make a property successful. And it's multifamily apartments. So a place where we give people great homes. And that was our goal. Our mission still is today. So we were able to grow from that little 24 unit with the help of a great team to now where we've purchased 33 properties, just under 6,000 units, and over $750 million in assets under management.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. I mean, you knew from a very young age, and I could tell that your sights were so much bigger than what was right in front of you. And I just have to say that your husband is probably a great partner because you grew this business together. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So he had a property management software company that he started when he was 26. So a year after we married, he said, "Hey, I want to start a business." And, I said, "Okay, our income can support us, or my income can support us. So go for it." And so he did. He grew it to 20,000 users. And it was for kind of mid-size property or mid-size owners. So he knew a lot about multifamily from that side of it. I didn't know hardly anything about it. And so he made the decision to sell in 2007. And then we moved to San Antonio where we have family and because it was a good rental market. And so we moved here and started working together. And I'll just say in any partnership, in the beginning, everybody does everything, right? You're stepping over each other, and I do this, but then he turns around and does it a little bit differently. And so what we learned was to identify our unique abilities. What are we good at? Can we contribute to the business? So after a few years, we made the decision that I would oversee the acquisition side of our business, working with lenders, right? I was a lender, so it made sense. Working with brokers on identifying opportunities and the number side of underwriting, et cetera. And he oversees the management side of our business. We have in-house management, all in all, about 200 employees that work with us day to day to keep our residents happy. And so we learned a lot. And I say in any partnership, learn what your skills are and what skills you want to bring into the partnership or the business marriage, as I call it.
Oh yeah, and in your case, it was not just a business marriage; it was a marriage, and I'm sure
Yes.
it presented a lot of challenges, which I really think is a great segue to my next question.
Mhm.
If there was one challenge that came to mind that you overcame, what would that be?
I would say, well, the challenge of working together was one. He had basically called the shots at his company, and I was used to the corporate environment where everything was a presentation and then there's a decision, right? And so that was one of the things that we had to learn was his style was very much of he looked at the big picture, made a fast decision. I am an analytical person, so I like more data and more facts. And so it takes me a little bit longer to get to that decision. So we had to find that happy medium of working together to where we both were comfortable with the decision that was being made. So I'd say that was a big one for us was to learn how to make decisions together.
Yeah, and I'm curious, how did you manage keeping your marriage intact through business? Because I know it really does present a lot of conflict sometimes.
It really can. And I think for us, we tried very hard to keep work at work. In the beginning, we were not successful, right? We were talking about things at night and in the morning, first thing you wake up. And it really does put a strain on things because there's never free time, there's never happy time. It's always business time. And so I think it came when we built our team. We added people to our team so that we could delegate some of that responsibility and not everything was on our shoulders. We oversaw it, but we didn't have to do it. And so I think that was a big one. And I encourage people to always look ahead and what would you like your team to look like? And who are those people that can take some of these duties off of you so that you can have more of a balanced life?
Yeah, and that is the myth of entrepreneurship, right? And there is a book by Michael Gerber named E Myth.
Uh-huh.
And it's really amazing how, in the very beginning, like you said, the both of you as partners would have to wear all hats.
Hmm.
And then the goal would be just to elevate yourself to a point where you could delegate and delegate until you're CEO, CFO, and now
Right.
you're running this large company. I love it when I hear successful stories of marriages that actually are also business partners, right? So
Yes.
that's pretty amazing. I wanted to ask you about influence and if there was one outcome that you're most proud of that you had influence on, what would that be?
I would say with our kids. So both of our kids have chosen on their own to work in our business. And, it could go either way. And people ask me all the time, well, how did you get them to do that? I said, it wasn't about getting them to do that. It wasn't about making them do it. It was exposing them to the business, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. They needed to see it. And so they both worked in our businesses at the properties when they were in middle school for our son, high school for our daughter. So they got to see what the business was really about. And I think even beyond the business, because I'm so proud. I mean, my daughter was on stage with me. That was so fun. But I'm so proud of both of them to see them from a business aspect, not just as your kids, but as business people. And to hear other people say, well, they're so poised and they speak so well and they're so kind to other people. And I think that to me is very, very important. Money is one piece of it, but the family dynamics, the family happiness has to be number one. And so I think that's my biggest accomplishment is the kids and seeing them flourish today in this environment, but doing their own thing, supervising and managing their own little departments.
Yeah, that's amazing because most business owners really hope that their children could take over a business that they've grown and most of the time you hear about families where the children don't want to have nothing to do with the
Right.
business.
Right.
And you're right about exposing your children to the good, the bad, and the ugly because the good is easy to see,
Yes.
easy to experience. But
Yes.
because you've exposed them to the daily operations and perhaps the bad and the ugly, when they made that choice to join you in business, that must have been so heartwarming and you must have been just so proud. So thank you for sharing that. Victoria was awesome on
Oh,
stage. And
thank
by the
you.
way, for the audience, I actually had met Arleen and Victoria in the recent Women's Summit, Investment Summit, which was put on by Beth Azor. So, and I was just totally in awe of their
Oh, thank
presentation. That's
you.
why I invited Arlene. But let's move on to advice. If there was
Okay.
one piece of advice that you could give to our audience, what would that be?
I would think well, I don't think I'm sure of it because it's been part of my life is to ask for what you want and then take the action behind it. So when I was 23, the manager of the international private banking department at the bank was going back to Spain, and I heard about it. And so I went to my boss and I said, I really want to apply for that opportunity. And she looked at me and I'm sure she was thinking, you're 23 years old. You want to manage millions and millions of people's money. But she didn't say that. I convinced her and I said, I've got a great background. I am fluent in Spanish, which the bulk of the customers were, from Mexico, Central America, South America. And so I made a proposition to her. I said, give me 6 months. You need somebody to step into this position today. Give me 6 months. Watch how I manage it. I will keep you updated weekly on what I'm doing. And I will earn the position over that 6 months. And she agreed that that would be something they would allow me to do. And so I did. I took that portfolio and that department and I grew it. And I did have a client one time that said, he hadn't met me in person and he said, he said, you sound very young. And I said, well, it's not polite to ask a woman her age. So I skirted that. And then he came into town probably 6 months later, because again, they live outside of the US. And he looked at me and he said, you are very young. And I said, well, how have I done for you? Have I kept you informed? I've been able to invest your money. And he said, you've done very, very well. So he was pleased.
Wow, I'm not surprised that you actually did very well in your job, even at a young age, because I mean, look at you. You're so full of vibrancy and you're so
Thank you.
bold. I think that's amazing to have a woman. And I know that there are going to be people in the audience who are listening in who's going to say to themselves, "Boy, I got to be just as bold as Arlene." So thank you for sharing that. I love that. So we've come
Yes.
to the part of the interview where I get to pass on the mic to you
Okay.
and you get to ask me a question. So please go ahead, Arlene.
Well, I admire that you are doing this podcast because it takes time. I know I have a podcast of my own. So, what was your goal or why did you start the podcast? What was it that you wanted people to get out of it?
Thank you for the question. We always, or at least myself, at least, I can say that I always think to myself that there has to be something greater than what I'm doing right now. Because we all would want to pursue our happiness in our careers, but there has to be some way that we can impact others. And I thought, well, what if I brought stories of successful women like Arlene to the broader audience? And even if it inspired one or two women to step out from who they are and just be bold and just learn from all the stories of these wonderful, wonderful women that I've interviewed through my podcast. What a great feeling that is, right? To have that sort of effect on other people. My daughter is turning 22. She was at the conference with me,
Yes. Mhm.
and I always thought to myself, I hope that she sees what I do and somehow get inspired to go out there and do the bold things and be successful that way and feel happy.
Mhm.
And she was with her girlfriends and we were having a conversation and they said that they wish that there was some kind of show, which is really what they do nowadays, right?
Mhm.
Podcasts and YouTube
Mhm.
and all that. And I thought to myself, yeah, that would be a great idea. So I just started doing it. And let me tell you, it is just amazing to me how if I'm in a conference or a meeting, somebody would come to me and say, "Oh, that episode was amazing. That lady was amazing." And I think to myself, boy, we reached someone. And at the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about. So that's it. That's the reason why I started a podcast. There was somebody actually who asked me, "What is your ROI on a podcast?" And I thought to myself, well, I would not take a dollar metric to to really measure the success of the podcast. I think that if other women get inspired, I think that's enough for me. So so there you go. Thank you for the question.
Well,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Yeah, I think you said it right. It's an infinite return.
Yes.
And you don't know who all you're gonna touch, right? Or who you have touched and impacted along the way, and it's okay not to know, because you know that's your goal, right? That's why you wanted to do it, and I just applaud you. Thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, and thank
Mm.
you, Arlene, for being here today. I think that when other people get a chance to hear women like you who are super successful, I mean, almost 6,000 units of multifamily, that's pretty up there. And yet we were just talking about growing up with your siblings and how you built the business with your husband and how you've impacted your children. I think that in the end, I hope that our audience is drawing some kind of uh, you know, uh, a conclusion that it's not just about getting there, it's the journey. And that you've done beautifully. So thank you so much, Arlene. And I hope that you're having good weather over there in Texas.
We're having beautiful weather. This is the time you wanna be in Texas, so,
Yeah.
highly recommend it. It's beautiful weather, and thank you so much for having me on, and let's stay connected. I love when you connect with someone and you keep that connection. That's beautiful.
Yes. Thank you so much. And do you have some parting words? Maybe some small parting words for our audience?
I think the thing I would say is, sometimes we forget to focus on our finances. We focus on everything else. So take a look at your financial picture and take control of that and take bold action on that side of your life also.
Well, thank you. That's important. Absolutely. Especially for women, because we tend not to look at the finances because we depend on our partner
Yeah.
or spouse or father or whoever. And that's such an important
piece of advice that you could give. Well, Arleen, before we go, if the audience wanted to look you up, and I know you have a book, so you want to talk a little bit about the book?
Sure, sure. So we just came out with a book a few months ago. It's called A Leap of Faith, and it is my husband's and my journey in real estate, really where we started to where we got to where we are today, and a little bit about kind of investors and how they look at investing in real estate. So would love it. It's on Amazon, A Leap of Faith. And then if you need to reach me, you can find me at reepequity.com, REEP equity.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's great. So, for all the people in the audience, I think that this book is going to be phenomenal. So, just pick one up right away. Well, thank you again, Arleen, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. I know you are a busy woman, and so I do appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I truly enjoyed it.
Thank you.